And we are live, Toronto Stevie live. So apparently, Nasty Neil made a post saying he wasn't going to do In Your Head tonight, couldn't do the show tonight, may do a show later this week. So, because of that, I decided, well, if you want your Raw report, folks, I'll give you a Raw report tonight. And meanwhile, like and subscribe if you like the post, like the show. I will do the show. More Raw reports and SmackDown summaries. If you check out my SmackDown summary for last week, that's on there as well. Um, let's get to Raw this week. Um, Came to you from Boston, Massachusetts, not too far from where Jack is in Sandwich. But um, um, so we have Dirty Dom is going to fight for the Intercontinental title, trying to get his title back from Penta. And pardon me, but we have a cat meowing in the background. Nonetheless, Dirty Dom will be coming out. I have to put my glasses on. I'm a little blind today. Um, we have entrances coming in: Javon Evans, Dirty Dom, Liv Morgan, Grayson Waller, Roman Reigns will confront CM Punk. But starting off Raw this week was Brock Lesnar and his advocate Paul Heyman. Brock just stands there and kind of poses. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman gets on the microphone and he says, and Brock has a new t-shirt. If you want to check out Brock's new t-shirt, it says FAF5. Paul Heyman says, he serves as the advocate for the only being on the planet who held the NCAA, UFC, and WWE Heavyweight Championships, the main event of WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar. The crowd is meanwhile chanting Obafemi's name, but Brock, he warns the crowd, you're pissing off Brock, and the reason they're doing this is because they need to be honest about what happened last week. Brock Lesnar says Paul Heyman says he beat up all of Seth Rollins' masked men, throwing them everywhere, getting destroyed. But he was distracted by Seth Rollins, and that's when Obafemi, gave him that his finishing move. But Paul then talks about Brock Lesnar's record at WrestleMania, saying he was the one in the 21-1 who defeated the Undertaker. And then he rounds off some other WrestleMania opponents: Goldberg, Braun Strowman, Dean Ambrose. Mentioned Dean Ambrose, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, John Cena. But says, Obafemi, your WrestleMania moment was putting your foot on Brock Lesnar's chest and pointing at the WrestleMania sign, but you will be victimized and conquered by Brock Lesnar. This brings out Obafemi. Obafemi comes down to the ring, gets in the ring, and it was a face-to-face with Brock Lesnar. Brock got the first punch. He kicked him and went for the F5, but Obafemi escaped and then clotheslines Brock over the top rope. Brock goes falling over to the barricade, and this was the end of the segment. So I'm really wondering if this is, I really think like at WrestleMania, Brock should put Obafemi over. He doesn't need the win. Obafemi really needs to win the WrestleMania win over a big name like Brock Lesnar. I certainly hope that this is the direction that they're going. Maybe Obafemi or Brock Lesnar is going to get some comeuppance next week before WrestleMania, because I certainly hope this doesn't mean Brock gets another WrestleMania win. Anyway, next up in the arena concourse, the Usos are making their entranceway. They're coming through the arena down into the ring. The opening match of the night is for the World Tag Team Championships. The champions, Jimmy and Jey Uso, defend against the Division B team of Logan Paul and Austin Theory. I know Logan Paul probably has more upside than Austin Theory, and he should probably get away from these guys as quickly as possible. But this one, didn't expect the finish of this one. They had a pretty good back and forth. When LA Knight, at one point, LA Knight came down to the ring, and this was around the time that Logan Paul was going for the brass knuckles, but LA Knight took them away from them, and then I think he threw them into the ring. He slid them into the ring, and it was Jey Uso who got the brass knuckles, and right in front of the referee, started attacking the heels with the brass knuckles. Referee had no choice but to call a disqualification victory for the Vision, and the Usos lose the match, but they keep the tag team titles because you can't lose the titles on a disqualification. There's a video showing what happened last week in the main event segment at Raw, and then a backstage segment. Becky Lynch is walking to the ring. Coming back from the commercial break, Becky Lynch comes down to the ring. She's got a microphone, and she starts, I can't believe you boo me and you cheer someone who abandoned you for a decade. And she starts talking about, people, you're getting sick of seeing me succeed. She says that she went home to her family, to people who appreciate her, like her daughter and her husband. But she says, that her daughter would start dancing around like she's AJ Lee. And her daughter didn't realize her mother was the greatest of all time. And once again, she puts herself over. But this brings out AJ Lee, who's in no mood to dance and parade. She comes charging down to the ring, gets in the ring. Becky Lynch takes a powder. Not only does she just get out of the ring, but she goes over the barricade and starts just disappearing in the crowd. Meanwhile, AJ gets on the announce table. She's not the only person to jump on the announce table tonight, but AJ gets on the announce table, and she basically calls herself Becky Lynch's daughter's favorite wrestlers. And she basically says, the only way I'm gonna give you what you want. So she challenges Becky Lynch to a match at WrestleMania for the Women's Intercontinental title. It's the only way she can get her hands on Becky Lynch. So I'm kind of wondering if this is AJ's sign-off, whether she's going to disappear again, or whether they're actually going to give her a WrestleMania victory. Because I really don't know how long AJ is going to stick around. But nonetheless, here's another WrestleMania match. AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental title. We get a backstage segment. The Usos are with LA Knight. And so I guess LA Knight has recovered from getting beaten up by Randy Orton on SmackDown. Javon Evans is warming up. And coming back from the commercial break, it's Javon Evans versus Grayson Waller. This one, Javon Evans, he's a tall, thin dude, but he can fly around the ring. He was flying around the ring in this match, and he was able to hit A fantastic super hurricanrana move and an OG cutter, and he pins Grayson Waller. Fantastic finish, very athletic guy. Backstage segment, Adam Pearce, he's in the trainer's room. There's a segment with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman wants Adam Pearce to schedule a rematch with the Usos and Logan Paul and Austin Theory. So Pearce responds, next week at Madison Square Garden, it's going to be a street fight. So there's going to be a street fight, probably for the tag team titles. I certainly hope they don't put the tag team titles on Austin Theory and Logan Paul. The Usos should probably retain the tag team titles in that match. Coming back from the commercial break. So this is where we get Seth Rollins doing his best Stone Cold Steve Austin impersonation. Paul Heyman comes down to the ring, and he basically says that, Bronson Reed's not here. There's no one to hide behind. Bronson Reed's injured. Brock Lesnar is so pissed off, he's gone for the night. Logan Paul and Austin Theory are half conscious after getting knocked out by the brass knuckles. And Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed won't be back anytime soon. So that leaves Paul Heyman all by himself. He says he's got a stalker, a jilted ex, a guy who fancies himself as a visionary, and his name is Seth freaking Rollins. Despite this, here's a news flash. Paul Heyman says he's a man who has been pushed too far. Rollins feels the same way. WWE isn't big enough for the both of us. So basically, he challenges Seth Rollins to come out. And so this time, there wasn't like a whole 15, 20 masked guys. There was just one masked guy who comes. And I think, I'm not sure if it was Seth who also jumped on the announce table, but he stood there. Yes, he did. He takes his mask off, and then there's like a whole bunch, some cops, guys dressed in Boston police uniforms, surround Seth Rollins. Seth just smiles at them, and it looks like this isn't going to go anywhere. But they were gonna. Seth jumps off the announce table. It looks like he's going to walk up the rampway and disappear, but instead he breaks away from the cops, runs down to the ring, attacks Paul Heyman, punches him in the face. The cops, of course, come down and they actually handcuff Seth Rollins. And it looks like Seth is on his way to the local Boston jail. Again, good impersonation of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Looks like this is maybe this is the inspiration that Triple H is taking now. Let's wind this back to 1999 or 1998, and have Seth Rollins taken to the jail. Coming back from the commercial break, a generic tag team match: Bayley and Lyra Valkyria versus the Kabuki Warriors. The commentators were talking about how Bayley is doing everything she can to get back to Wrestlemania because she missed last year, but it was Lyra Valkyria hitting the Nightwing and getting the match for their tag team. A woman named Jackie gets in the ring and interviews the girls after the win, and they're talking about how they're next week at Madison Square Garden, they're going to get a tag team title match against Nia Jax and Lash Legend. I expect Nia Jax and Lash Legend are probably going to go over in that match. I'm wondering if this is building towards a Bayley heel turn where she's going to turn on Lyra Valkyria. it would certainly seem the direction that they're probably going with this. We get a backstage segment with Penta, ISHO Speed, and Dragon Lee coming back from the commercial break. Is another backstage segment with Adam Pearce, ISHO Speed, and Danhausen. And Danhausen ends it by putting a curse on ISHO Speed. Yet a third backstage segment. Asuka is furious at Kairi Sane. Io Sky tries to convince Kairi Sane to break away from Asuka, but she doesn't. And so this brings up the next match. Dirty Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan. They are making their way to the entranceway. They're at the very top of the entranceway, and they're starting to go towards the ring when Stephanie Vaquer jumps Liv Morgan from behind, and they start brawling to the back, leaving Dirty Dom by himself. And in fact, I think they brawled all the way into the gorilla position, and eventually Liv Morgan ran away. But they're trying to really build this feud up, and I'm kind of thinking that Liv Morgan's going to take the title at WrestleMania. I think she's going to, this is my prediction right now. Liv Morgan will win the title at WrestleMania from Stephanie Vaquer. Coming back from the commercial break, it is an Intercontinental Championship match. Penta defending the title against Dirty Dominic Mysterio. Dirty Dom has JD McDonough at ringside. Fantastic match, entertaining, probably the match of the night. Dirty Dom going for his 619. Penta responding with a super kick. He goes for the Mexican Destroyer. JD McDonough distracts him, and this brings out Finn Balor. Finn Balor comes down to the ring. He takes out JD McDonough. This distracts Dirty Dominic Mysterio. And Penta, I think he didn't hit the Mexican Destroyer for the finish this time. He just, I think he just rolled up Dirty Dom and pinned him. Dirty Dom went for a frog splash, but Penta just rolled him up and pinned him. But as Penta left the ring, Dirty Dom gets into the ring, and he's going after Dominic Mysterio with a sling blade and a drop kick, and he tried to hit the coup de grace, but JD McDonough pulled Dirty Dom out of the ring. So Balor decides to go after JD McDonough. He throws JD McDonough into the ring. Meanwhile, Dirty Dom just didn't bother to save JD. So Dirty Dom gets Balor hits the drop kick on JD McDonough, and then climbs to the top rope, hits the coup de grace on McDonough, and that ends the segment. So it looks like they're building towards a Dirty Dom versus Finn Balor match, probably at WrestleMania. I'd give, that's a toss-up. Balor, either one of those guys could win that match. So they do a next week on Raw from Madison Square Garden. They say Brock Lesnar will come back. They promote the women's tag team title match. Bayley and Lyra Valkyria versus Nia Jackson Lash Legend. Io Sky will take on Raquel Rodriguez. And for the World Tag Team titles, yes, what I thought, in a street fight, the Usos versus The Vision. So next, we get CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Punk comes down to the ring, and he says, did you hear what Jimmy Uso said to him before he came out? He says that Jimmy Uso warned him that his brother, who is one half, his brother Roman Reigns, his cousin, one half of the tag team champions, Jey Uso, is on the warpath, and he says he supposes that he should watch what he says. Should I watch what I say? But the crowd doesn't want him to. So he says, Roman Reigns, he can't do anything without his cousins. Nobody in his entire family can do anything by themselves. They always need help. So nobody in that family can be the heavyweight champion of the world. CM Punk says, Roman Reigns gave these Samoans permission to come after him, but zero Samoans have even tried. And then he says, this is the shit-talking business. They try to say and do things to each other to sell a big fight. That's my job. Being in this business, being in a blue-collar city like Boston. Punk says he's tired of talking. And then he says, it's not... he says, oh yeah, so he brings up that last week on Raw, Roman Reigns called him old. He said, it's not what they said. It's not what he said, but it's who he said it to. So he stands in the ring and he calls out Roman Reigns, calls Roman Reigns his young boy. And you don't get to disrespect me and call me old. He asked Boston if he's old, and the crowd starts a yes chant. I think they did say yes, he was old. But so then Punk basically admits it. He says, yes, I'm old, but I'm not ashamed of it. So this brings out, he makes his reference. So he says, he's middle-aged and crazy like Terry Funk. He's the same age as Nolan Ryan when he was throwing no-hitters. Punk calls himself Mr. Game 7. The older he gets, the more pressure he faces, and the better he becomes. Age is just a number. Ask me how I feel. I do feel old, but I don't need people to acknowledge me. So eventually, Jey Uso does indeed come out, and Punk looks at him and says, what are you going to do? Eat me to death? This brings out Jimmy Uso, and they all get in the ring. And finally, Roman Reigns comes. And this time, Roman Reigns doesn't take forever to get in the ring. He actually is pretty quick. He comes down to the ring, so you have the three Samoans and CM Punk in there. And finally, Roman just looks at Jimmy Uso and he says, get your brother and leave my ring. Jay is kind of getting all fired up, and Punk gets into Jey Uso's face and hits him with the microphone, and this brings Roman Reigns finally hits a Superman punch on CM Punk. This brings out the officials and Adam Pearce, but Jay tells Roman Reigns to get CM Punk. So Roman Reigns just goes crazy and starts beating up on CM Punk. And they take the brawl to the announce table, and Roman Reigns gives CM Punk the power bomb through the table, and CM Punk just gets laid out on the announce table. And after he did this, the crowd in Boston was yelling one more time. They really wanted Roman to continue to beat up CM Punk, but instead Roman just left him there, and as Raw goes off the air, CM Punk is laid out, but he's laughing as he's trying to get up. Somebody asked him if he wants help, and CM Punk just says, I'm not the one who needs help, as Raw goes off the air. So this was that was Monday Night Raw. Definitely a different, it was a Raw to build the WrestleMania feuds, introduce a couple of more WrestleMania matches, so this card continues to build and grow. So I'm really kind of enjoying the Roman Reigns CM Punk main event feud and kind of wondering where it's going. I guess they were trying to make Roman Reigns a heel, but the fans were cheering Roman Reigns, so everything is kind of mixed up. But that was Monday Night Raw. I guess I haven't got any wrestling news that I can think of. I think I covered that, the two main ones on SmackDown summary. So I will go off tonight. Thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if Nasty Neil does another In Your Head this week, I may be on. If not, I'll be back next week. Have a good night, everybody.